What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like $100,000.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders like founders you've heard of and some you've never heard of. You know, before I introduce today's guest, Lee Firestone, who's CEO of OpenReel. You know, Lee, I've had the founder of Wistia on, Chris Savage. He talked about when they were really tiny, how they were honest to their customers that they were tiny. And I also had Pipedrive co-founder Ermas, who talks about having brain surgery, getting married, moving to Estonia to the US all in the same year. At the time, Pipedrive was 10,000 paying customers, and now they're over 100,000 paying customers. So check out those episodes, many more at InspiredInsider.com. This episode is brought to you by Rise25, which I co-founded with my business partner, John Corcoran. Rise25, basically we help businesses and companies launch and run their podcast, and to form the relationships they should be forming, because it serves their business and it also serves the legacy. And I consider, Lee, when someone produces a video, and you totally get this, when you produce a video, it's not just to serve the business, but you are almost, providing a piece of content that is a legacy that lives on for years to come for you and that person. And check out my About page. The motivation for me with podcasting comes from my grandfather, who was a Holocaust survivor, and they did an interview with him, and his legacy lives on my About page because of that. So check out Rise25 if you have questions about podcasting in general. And Lee, I just want to give a shout out to Phil Nadell, Managing Director at Forefront Venture Partners. Yep. ForefrontVP.com, they invest in high growth revenue generating companies like OpenReel and Chargeback and other companies. So I'm excited to have you. And also people can check out Story Cruise, where Ian Garlic talks about how to market video. So when you use OpenReel, you can actually get the word out and market it more. So Ian talks about OpenReel also on his, on Story Cruise, and he's got the Giants of Video Summit. He talks about Lee Firestone OpenReel, so you can check it out there too. Lee Firestone, we found out, that we have some definite mutual interests, but he's CEO of OpenReel. And if you don't know OpenReel, which I've heard from some of the top video people right now, like they can't ignore you, Lee. They can't ignore OpenReel. You know what I mean? Like before, maybe they shouldn't ignore you, but now they really cannot ignore you because you're a patented remote video capture technology that allows teams to direct and capture 4K video remotely through a user's phone, which replaces the need for a video crew, a camera crew, right? Yep. You still need directed and everything like that, but it's remote. And in today's day and age, now everyone's forced to go remote. And now that they're remote, they're like, why did I do anything different than remote? That's what it is, right?
That was a better pitch than I've ever given, actually.
Well, and the thing is, there's publishers, agencies, Fortune 500 companies, they're utilizing OpenReel's technology, from client testimonials to interviews, you name it. And it's a must. So you can check it out at OpenReel.com. That's REEL, of course, because it's obviously for filming. But Lee, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, listen, I'm excited to be here. And absolutely. I mean, you have really, I think we're at the beginning of sort of an interesting paradigm shift. Obviously, the current situation has really accelerated everything right now. We had some pretty good traction prior to all of this happening. We patented this technology a few years ago, or started the process to patent it, got the patents maybe about a year ago. But the idea of being able to shoot this way, I think has been on people's mind for a while. And we hear a lot of people coming in saying, I've been thinking about this for a while. It's cool that you guys were able to execute on it. We're excited just about the usage and the increase of that right now. But you made an interesting point. Video lives on. And I think, as you talk to more and more marketers and more publishers and broadcasters right now, just the amount of video that's being created and requested within and outside organizations is it's significant. So yeah, it's a timely tool, and we're excited about the traction.
Yeah, I want to talk about some of the use cases of video because you serve a lot of different types of companies, from agencies to publishers to influencers to social media. There's a lot of uses. And it's funny, I will say, before we got started, we froze up a few times and you're like, that's why you use OpenReel. So, I mean, right now we're using Zoom, but that's why you use it, but it's, and I also want to mention, Lee, you did co-found PerkPlate and Baystone Media, which was acquired. And that's, you could, that's kind of, you have that really experienced background in media, even in a lot of different, niches. But so talk about one of your favorite stories, use cases.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So it's actually changes probably on a weekly basis now just because of the acceleration. But I think what's exciting right now is that we have a lot of publishers and broadcasters, major corporations, major, streaming, broadcast corporations actually shooting video of celebrities, shows, I'm sure you
Oh,
see,
wow.
I'm sure you see a lot of the, shows. Obviously they're all trying to figure out how to capture high quality video. How are they executing on this stuff right now? So I think our name has sort of been floating around in those circles, and to be able to, see some of the sports stars, the athletes, the celebrities, just some of those use cases that are being, like the shows that, you watch on a Saturday night, some of these shows are being shot with OpenReel right now.
Right.
And that's pretty exciting. That we never actually intended for it to be used for that. And it's funny, when we first started creating this product, we were looking at the iPhone and saying, oh, maybe we can get high quality out of this iPhone or a smartphone. And the quality, and even in the last few years of what you're able to capture now, you're capturing 4K video. So, it just goes to show us that this is something that's sort of here to stay. And the quality of video that these phones and these devices are able to capture now is production quality video. And to be able to do that remotely, and instead of, I don't think it replaces camera crews, but to be able to use it to supplement and in some cases, replace the need depending upon the type of footage is pretty exciting. And I think that's the most exciting thing that we've had in the 4 years that we're creating.
Yeah. I mean, there's two sides of that, Lee, right? There's the quality, making sure it's quality, and then there's the economic side. Because the company's like, wait, I don't need to fly 4 people, put them up in a hotel,
right,
pay their food bills, and still get high quality video. So talk about the economics standpoint of what OpenReel affects as far as that goes.
Yeah, that's a great point. So recently we had a major athlete who was being recorded, and he's used to going into a studio or having a full crew come to his house to do really a head-on interview, and that's thousands of dollars of time and equipment and effort to go. And
time alone is
time alone, and not only the crew's time but also his time, right, to have this, these people in his house or in his backyard or wherever they're doing it and setting it up, and he's there. It's hours of time. With our technology, he was able to put a tripod, put the phone in there, get the lighting right, and shoot a take and be done in 30 minutes. So something that was thousands of dollars previously is now, maybe $100 to do that shoot. It's a significant time savings, but yeah, on the economic side, it's significant.
So to shoot the same quality video, like a 4K video, what is a typical camera from like a crew? What are they using? I'm not familiar with the cost of like, okay, you can get this camera and how, if people are like, Lee, how can you even use this? Like someone's holding one of those, I picture one of those big things that like,
right.
I'm in Chicago, the Bulls games are like filming the game compared to, you just have a phone. How is that shooting high quality video?
Yeah, definitely. Listen, they're using DSLRs or red cams or, these high end cameras that are in some cases tens of thousands of dollars. And not to say that, we're capturing the same exact quality as a $50,000 quality. That's camera. That's not happening. But you are capturing 4K video, and especially with the new phones right now, just the quality that they're able to capture and the depth is just getting that much better. So, I mean, if you look at the back of any of these phones, if you're shooting out of the back camera, and in some instances the front camera of any of these phones, I mean, you're really capturing amazing quality video.
How did you meet Phil?
I think I cold emailed Phil.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What did you say?
So I had been following Forefront for a while. Obviously in raising money, you're looking, at a lot of different people. I checked out Phil's syndicate. He's one of the most well-known syndicates on AngelList, and he's just got a phenomenal portfolio. I was speaking to some of the founders, his portfolio companies, and I ended up just sort of reaching out and saying, hey, this is, we're raising right now, and would love to just at least have the conversation. And we had a number of conversations. Phil's a very detailed guy, and he really dug in, which I appreciated. Took the time, and it was a great process. And he's been just a huge asset to us so far.
How are publishers using you?
Yeah, so you have publishers obviously with in a number of different verticals, whether they're just general media publishers or they're specific vertical publishers. But what they're doing is they're interviewing talent, they're interviewing thought leaders with it, they're capturing a number of different types of stories with it. All this video content that they were creating previous, again, with all these other methods we were talking about, they're utilizing OpenReel, and they're just able to listen. Content today is, it's good for an hour, it's good for a day. It goes, it goes very quickly. So this is just a tool I think that they're utilizing to be able to spin up new content on a pretty consistent basis, and do it, at scale, and do it pretty quickly. So that's how they're utilizing it. So.
What's, Lee, what's the most common, most popular use of OpenReel?
Yeah, so I think there's two different sides to it. I think you have your corporate side. So you have a lot of internal communications. There's a lot of thought leadership video. There's a lot of training videos, educational videos that happen within the organization, within these large enterprise organizations where.
What would be an example of that?
So let's say I just did a new product release within an organization, and I want to be able to record the head of engineering talking about that product release. And they want to sort of do a screen share along with capturing the video. And again, that's not UGC self-captured, but you have a marketing team or an internal comms team who wants to be able to direct that initiative. So they, pair to that person's device, the head of engineering can, walk through the new product update. It's captured in a higher quality way, something that's able to be distributed across the organization. And that's a good idea of how companies are using it internally. They're also using it for social and external as well. But on the corporate side, that's really one of the major use cases.
And then is like that, as far as like we mentioned a little bit, because people ask me all the time when we're working with their podcasts, like, how do I get a higher quality video? They're using Zoom. And is that why people are choosing one of the reasons why, or what's the reason why people are like, yeah, what? Well, let's just go with OpenReel. Yeah,
sure. So I think it's twofold. Number one, you definitively have a better quality, right? So video conferencing technologies are built for streaming. They're built so that we can talk to one another in real time, and it not to drop off. It doesn't need to be higher quality 4K 1080 video. As long as we can really see each other clearly, have a conversation, that works. So there are a lot of people who are using these technologies to record video. But again, they're beholden to the internet connection. Like we had before, you have a pause or a stop. It's not capturing always the best audio. So for something that needs to be recorded in higher quality, that's going to, be evergreen and live on a consistent basis, it's not always the best technology to do that for. That's where our technology sort of comes in. And with our tech, obviously you can capture it locally. You're capturing the full quality. The second side of that is the directing piece, right? So we've heard from a lot of organizations and a lot of publishers, a lot of broadcasters, influencers, they ask people for UGC or user-generated content, right? So that's, me standing here sort of with the phone, or I'm sitting in front of my computer. And there's a couple issues with that. Number one, I'm not always getting the type as the marketer or the.
I can see a million issues with that.
Yeah, there's potentially, we've seen videos sort of up people's nose. It doesn't always come out the right way. So it's the directing, it's the controlling capability, right? To be able to see what the other person is doing and direct them and, sort of guide them along, and again, capture that. And again, not only the other side of it is be able to get that content in your hands in real time is a huge benefit. So I think the control of it and to be able to drive those initiatives is the other side.
What's the biggest question people have? And they're like, okay, I'm thinking of OpenReel. I'm not sure. What's like the biggest thing holding people back?
So listen, it's definitively it's a premium product, right? So you have video conferencing technologies that that you can get for 15 or 20 bucks a month. The pricing is a little bit higher. Again, it's a patented technology. It's something that people use to get quality. So the pricing, again, I think is a little bit higher. You really need to, and we really qualify. We really want to have people who have a consistent use case, and they're creating a lot of video in the organization. So that's one. And then the other thing I think is just it's what are they using it for, and how often are they using it? Do they have an initiative? And early on, we weren't seeing that as much. 16, 17, early 18. And then there was sort of this shift in sort of 2018, when we really started licensing the technology out. We saw this really big shift to video in companies and organizations. And I think at that point, you really saw people move over and say, okay, we need to have a video strategy. Like a lot of companies previous to that, if you look at the metrics on it, didn't even have video strategies. It was like, hey, let's create a testimonial video and throw it up on the site. Now it's like, hey, if you don't have video on an ongoing basis in your organization, whether that's of internal, external employees, whatever the case is, people forget very quickly. So I think that's, I think that was holding people back, and now it's shifted, and now people are moving towards it.
Totally. Like an ongoing video strategy. I mean, I don't know what remotely builds better trust and credibility than a video of someone talking.
Yep.
I mean, you could read something, you could listen to someone, but when you see them and you see the nonverbal communication with the verbal and them in general, there's nothing that beats that.
Absolutely.
What's the, talk about video strategy. What are some things that work, you've seen companies do that work with video strategy? Yeah.
So, I mean, listen, what's interesting is a lot of people want to do key opinion leader content, which I think is a great strategy, right? But I think a lot of organizations are not looking internal to the company. Like the value that your team and your leadership can provide in talking about your product and their expertise,
Totally.
Again, whatever that is huge. A lot of companies are not doing that, right? Or they're keeping it internal to the organization. There's so much value in your expertise in your company.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot more of that now, and a lot more there are professionals in these companies, like employees that are pros at what they do.
Yeah.
And they have all this insight. And if you look at LinkedIn, like we're starting to see some more of it. And again, I really think we're at this sort of inflection point now where you're going to see a flood. And again, it's really bad timing with everything that's going on, but it's forcing us into sort of this remote nature right now. And I think part of that you're going to see as part of that is a huge push in a lot of video, and a lot of video being done internal to the organization that gets shared to their customer base and external.
Yeah, that's a good point, Lee, because it's underutilized. The team's underutilized, and also I put the full brunt of the effort and energy on maybe the CEO to do this when he is or she has experts under them who are doing this. And so let's talk about that for a second. Joe Matthew, right? CTO, talk about his expertise in what he's done.
Yep. Yeah, sure.
Because I'm sure this is like heavy technology stuff. So I don't even know. I want to know what goes into this. And I'm sure definitely. Joe knows the ins and outs, but talk about him and his expertise.
So I'm not going to step too far because I'll get yelled at.
I want you to get yelled at. Go ahead.
No, kidding. So listen, Joe and myself early on really kind of thought about the idea behind this, but him and his team were able to execute on this technology. And it's definitively not simple technology to be able to, keep this stream going, capture something locally, pull it off a device, be able to control robust video controls on a device. We have a webcam side and we have a phone side. But to be able to control frames per second, exposure, resolution, start and stop, roll a teleprompter on a screen, do this all remotely, and be able to sort of packet that up and send it to the cloud. I mean, I'm simplifying it here, but we have a dev team now of 12 people that, this is all they work on all day long, is keeping this thing stable, adding feature sets to it. So they've done a pretty amazing.
I can't even imagine, because of all the devices that are out. I mean, there's so many different iterations of or what people can be using, what kind of devices. It's like, forget it. I'd be like, I give up, throw my hands up, forget it. It's not even worth it.
Yeah, it's and I think what's exciting, and one of the challenges they've had, especially in the last 3 months. I mean, in the last 3 months, we've seen a 500% increase in the amount of videos being recorded through our technology. So we've scaled that team up, and just some of the, obviously some of the challenges they've had, which they've done an amazing job in executing on it, is number one, scaling the platform to be able to handle that, thousands of connections potentially at a time. And then on the other side, just the feature set, right? So we were talking about recording celebrities, recording broadcasts. You have legitimate production people coming and using our technology now. They have a ton of new feature sets and ideas around what this should be and how it should execute. So, they've done an amazing job in being able to spin that stuff up and scale it up quickly.
Where did the idea come from?
The idea for OpenReel,
the
remote capture. Yeah, it's a great question. So, I have a background in medical marketing. Previously, started a company years ago that we had for a number of years, and it was sold.
That's a Firestone Media.
That was Firestone Media, correct? Yep. And in 2013, we sold that company, and a few years later, we had the idea to create sort of a medical video platform that was all video of doctors talking about conditions and opinions and et cetera. So we were running around New York City sort of shooting video with camera crews, and we said, this is sort of crazy, we can't scale this. And we ended up looking at the iPhone and saying, maybe there's a way for us to control this, and everyone's got this device, or a smartphone, everyone's got this device, maybe we can remote into that. And it took us quite a while to build the technology, but we ended up building sort of an MVP of it, and used it to end up shooting about 3,000, 4,000 videos of doctors early on. So that's where the idea sort of came from. And then from that, I remember I was speaking at an event, and a company or two came up to me and said, hey, can we use this? We have use case for it. And we pivoted over to sort of this licensing model, and we haven't looked back, and that's sort of where the business is today.
Talk about the licensing part of it for people.
Sorry?
Talk about the licensing part.
Yeah, sure. So the licensing part of it. So in essence, we're a SaaS company, subscription model. We license this technology to companies on a subscription basis. There's full onboarding, there's full training, there's full support, even in-shoot support, if they need that. So we're in essence creating experts on these training and through this onboarding process, and we're letting them. So we're not actually the ones shooting the video. We're giving them the technology to shoot the video. So we have thousands of users of people recording these videos. And yeah, they handle it all themselves. And it's an interesting point, because so we have this collaborator feature where basically you have a director, but you could have up to 4 people join in a shoot and be as stakeholders and be able to watch and comment on the shoot. So that's another interesting feature that allows people to really scale within their organization and capture the right footage at the right time. And if one of those seats needs to be us helping out with a shoot, we support that as well.
So the idea for the licensing portion was just people had use cases. They were approaching you to say, hey, can we use this also? And then the light bulb went on?
That was really so that was really the inflection point for us, is saying, this is a cool concept. It was hard to pivot away from that concept, but we saw the broader use case here of every company really should have this tool in-house and being able to sort of scale video. And again, we were a little bit early at that point. It's come full circle now, but that was really the light bulb moment to say, okay, this is the business. This is really where it scales, and this is where it starts to take off. And it's been a bit of a long road to get here, but now we're really starting to see some significant growth.
Yeah. I forgot the definition of luck, Lee. It's like opportunity meets hard work or something. So it's like there is some luck involved sometimes with timing of things, and technology, especially with you need a phone you need a certain technology to be up to snuff for people to use what you have, right?
Yeah. So in the beginning, that was sort of part of the problem, right? Whereas the technology wasn't there to be able to capture the quality video. We were sort of ahead of it. And we were waiting for some of this technology in terms of the cameras on these devices and webcams and phones to catch up, and it did so very rapidly, which was great for us. But yeah, now we're seeing
it's a bit of a bet early on, especially when you're early on in technology, right?
Yeah, it was. It definitely was a bet. I mean, listen, we definitely saw it coming. We knew it was on the way. We just didn't know how long, and I think that's why we sold this idea to one of our earliest investors was Brooklyn Bridge Ventures here in New York, and Alpine Meridian Ventures here in New York, and Bill and Charlie, these guys took a gamble on us early on, and they were huge assets. They were patient with us. They were patient with the technology. They knew it was coming, and to be at this point where it's finally sort of come to fruition, it was an interesting bet early on for sure.
So, Lee, you work with Joe with Firestone Media. Is that how you know each other?
Yeah. So Joe ran our product and ops at Firestone.
I want to talk about the Firestone days for a second because, I'm sure it's easier for these companies to invest in a proven founder who has an exit. What were some of the high points and maybe challenges of Firestone Media, and then you eventually sold it?
Yeah, sure. So that's an interesting question. So Firestone, we were a little bit early also. So at the time we were doing sort of templated websites, templated newsletters, and everybody was out there sort of doing websites for like $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 a piece and up. And we sort of came out with this subscription model early on. I
remember one of your companies.
It was
Online Cairo. I remember it. It was a subscription base, right? And so you pay a monthly fee, but you get the template, and it's almost kind of like hosting with design in one, right?
Yep, exactly. So we were early to that. I think in the beginning we were charging like $29 a month, and then it was $39 a month, and we stuck with that model. And again, it was just sort of a scale model, and it was all within dental and Cairo were largely, but a number of other verticals. But I think with technology in and of itself, it's gotten so much more saturated. If you're not trying to disrupt something early on, and if you can't look out a few years, it's hard. And especially even back then, things were moving so much slower. But today, these development teams and these technology professionals are so talented, and the technology is there that, ideas hit the market, and then within a month later, there's 10 clones of it. So I think it's really tough to try and disrupt these days, and tough to come up with an idea and fill a gap.
With Firestone, talk about some, customer acquisition is key. You guys had a lot of customers. How did you break it in the market? What was the best way that you were able to acquire customers?
Yeah, sure. Back then, it's funny, we were doing print. We were
direct mail.
Yeah, we were doing direct mail. We were doing, we ran some ads in some of the industry magazines. That was actually our best source of leads back then. So yeah.
What would you send in direct mail? Like a postcard, or what would you send?
Yeah, sure. We'd send a postcard.
I'm sure I've received your postcards.
I'm sure. We were talking about. I'm a huge fan of chiropractic. We were doing postcards. We were doing direct mail. We were doing like full page ads. And even up through near towards the end, that was still our best source of leads.
Shout out to alwaysdirectmail.com, actually in their podcast. They do that for companies, actually, for businesses. But so what was the offer? What worked? What was the offering in maybe full page or the postcard?
Back then? So yeah, we were doing sort of no setup, and like, it's 39 a month back then, so we were just running pretty aggressive deals back then to get people in. And, and again, I think very similar to OpenReel, and I've always been a huge believer in this. I think the idea of, customer service and client success is huge in companies, right? So, even back then, we would really make sure if you needed help with your website, we were on top of it. And even today with the videos, if you're in the middle of a shoot, like our response time is near immediate, right? To be able to, you're doing a shoot, you're doing a video, you have a problem or you have a question, like one of our support team will get on the shoot with you, help you out, make sure everything is going smoothly. So I think back then and today, I think a little bit of that's been lost in technology in general.
People just want to go digital, and there's that touch. I mean, obviously it's in your DNA at OpenReel because you do one-on-one personal communication via video, but still the emphasis on support, like live support.
I think, I just think, and again, maybe that's just in my DNA and sort of, my background, but we want to make sure that companies are comfortable using the technology. At some point they sort of go off on their own and they become experts and pros, and they can handle 99% of the technology. But to be able to support people and support our clients the right way is sort of I think it's been a huge differentiator for our client base. And I think that's also why we get a lot of word of mouth.
So Lee, how do you hire a good support team? What do you look for a good support person?
Yeah. So for us, it's follow-up and sense of urgency. Those are the two things that we look for, right? So even during an interview process, we have an ad, we have an interview. It's how quickly are they following up? Are they following up again? How passionate are they about the job and what they're doing? And we recently have increased our support team. We've actually tripled our support team.
Wow.
And we have people sort of all over the country now. Again, we're really working remotely, but they have a very specific background, right? They have a technical background, they have a video background. We're really looking for people who are passionate about video, passionate about technology, and just really are excited about this technology in and of itself. And that's who we're looking for. That's who we found have been pretty amazing.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Lee. And first of all, thanks for sharing and taking the time to share some of the journey with us. I have two last questions, but I want to point people towards openreel.com. Check it out. Anywhere else we should point people towards online that would be helpful for them and for OpenReel?
Yeah. No, I think if you go to OpenReel and you can take a look at the technology, obviously take a look at some of the videos and the capability that the technology has. It's expanding all the time. We're actually in the process of releasing another product, which is sort of a self-capture technology along with a remote capture to support both sides, because we're getting a lot of interest on that side as well. I would just go to openreel.com and obviously the LinkedIn pages and the Instagram pages at OpenReel Video, and you can sort of see what people are creating and some of our content.
You could use your phone, your tablet, or your computer to capture this.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
And another component of that is it's global, right? So you can record video nearly anywhere in the world. So that's another thing. We have a ton of multinationals, a ton of companies in other countries that are either recording video from that country or recording, again, in other places in the world. And when you talk about the cost and expense, that's a huge benefit as well.
So how should podcasters be using OpenReel? Or is it maybe not the best use case?
Yeah, so
not everyone does video, but I do, and I know a bunch of people who do.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a number of podcasters who are looking at using the technology. So there's something that we have called Multicam as well. So you can record up to 4 devices at once. So if you're talking about a podcast, again, whether they're in the same place or not in the same place, you can record both feeds. You can talk back and forth like this, and again, capture it in up to 4K quality. So yeah, nice. Definitely capability as well.
So last 2 questions I always ask since Inspired Insider is, what's been a low point or moment in your entrepreneurial journey? And on the flip side, what's been a proud moment on your entrepreneurial journey? What's been a low point that you had to push through? Is like, because we hear the up stories, but oftentimes there's a lot of stuff we don't hear about with the challenges.
Sure. So, there, on the low side, I would say there's two pieces. After we exited the last company, you're, as an entrepreneur, you're sort of excited that you sort of finished this journey. There's obviously that feeling of this ended, and that's sort of sad. And then it's getting to the next phase of what are you going to do next. And there's obviously a ton of serial entrepreneurs out there, but really trying to figure out what you're doing next. And and early, especially in the beginning of starting a new company, we bootstrapped this company in the beginning before we raised capital, and it's hard. It took us probably a year to get something going again, and those early days are tough. It's like,
you're like, why am I doing this again?
Like, what am I doing? And to any entrepreneur out there, I think if you have an idea, if you have something that you're really passionate about, and you can have a market, really a true market need for it, you just got to stick with it. I think that's the moral.
What kept you going for that year? It was like, forget it. Like, in that year when you're, and some people it's longer. They don't get traction for longer. What do you think of to continue to push forward?
Yeah. So listen, I think you sort of have to have this North Star. Like, this is the idea. This is what we want to build. And we see this as a huge opportunity. And the other side of it is having a good co-founder, right? So they're going through the same thing as you are. It's nearly impossible to do this stuff alone. So if you don't have a good team around you, if you don't have a good co-founder, it's going to be really difficult, because, you bounce off each other when you have your highs and lows. And it's a roller coaster. Listen, every day, even now, is a roller coaster. And even sort of 2 years into this, even after we raised, we were getting close to running out of capital, and that was a scary time for us. And just recently, we were able to raise another round in November from Las Olas Venture Capital, who again sort of believed in the idea and believed in the vision with us. So that was like a huge win for us, and it was a decent amount of capital that allowed us to really scale the company and grow. And I think at the end of the day, it's a roller coaster, and you really just need to be able to handle the highs.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. But we're super excited about it. And
what about proud moment?
Yeah. So listen, proud moment is to be able to see some of the names, without naming names right now.
Do anyone give you rights to say their name on their platform, or is it because of licensing, it's kind of anonymous?
Yeah, we have a lot of the confidentiality in our agreements, but
I'm going to keep guessing until you smile. Like Saturday Night Live, The Daily Show. No, I was kidding.
Close, very close.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, listen, it's amazing 4 years later to be able to say, like, these major organizations, these major Fortune 500 companies, these huge media conglomerates are, you could say these names and everyone knows them that are using your technology. And this is the go-to right now for how you shoot video. It's an amazing feeling, and our team is ecstatic about it. And we talk about it all the time. It's like just an amazing thing. So
Lee, when you graduated from University of Florida Gators, what did you want to do? Did you know you want to start your own company, or?
I always thought, so my father was an entrepreneur, and,
what did he do?
So he was in the optical business and a number of other businesses, and he owned, he ran a number of those companies, and he owned stores, and he was an executive in that industry. But yeah, so I'll tell you a quick funny story before we go. So, at University of Florida, my first business there, my first business idea was, I decided that I was going to have like a coupon book, right? So I ran around to sort of all the bars and restaurants, and I got deals from them, and I put together this book. It was called like Gator Bucks or something like that, whatever I called it back then. And I ran around trying to sell the book to college students, and it failed miserably. And what I realized is I should have been charging the restaurants and bars and not the college students. But even
And
back
did you
then,
pivot that to that or no?
no, I didn't.
You know, the funny thing is some of my relatives started Clipper magazine. I don't know if you heard of it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they started it. That's how they started it. Clipper magazine. And they ended up selling it to the Gannett media company.
Sure.
But that's what they did. That's how they started, running around college campuses. Exactly the same thing.
That's very interesting. Back then, I mean, this is 2000.
You were like you were so close. Like you were right there. You were right there.
I've missed like that a lot. But yeah, I think even back then I wanted to always sort of be an entrepreneur, for better, for worse, and run companies and sort of start companies and execute on vision. And sometimes there's ups, sometimes there's downs, but we got something pretty.
There's always those, we'll call them learning and not failure, but there's always those learning companies along the way. Oftentimes you go, oh yeah, it's like a 10-year success overnight, right? Because, you had all these little companies that build into bigger and bigger companies. So Lee, I totally appreciate you sharing your story. Everyone should check out OpenReel, open and then REEL.com. And thanks again.
Yeah, listen, it's been amazing. Thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.